Hi, I'm Roddy Mtz. This past week, one of the most famous atheists in the world, named Richard Dawkins, sat down for a virtual interview with the LBC radio station in London, where he was asked about a range of topics regarding religion. Now, of course, Richard Dawkins is no stranger to be critical of religion. He's been very outspoken about the supposed dangers of religious belief, wrote several books against theism, and is one of the leading voices of the new atheism movement, along with other familiar names such as Christopher Hitchens, Daniel Dennett, and Sam Harris. Richard Dawkins, though, isn't just an atheist. He's an anti-theist. There's a difference between an atheist, someone who doesn't believe in God, and an anti-theist, one who believes that the belief in God is dangerous and is better to simply not exist at all. Richard Dawkins doesn't just reject the idea of God, he actively preaches against it. That's why with atheists like Richard Dawkins, it's probably best to think of them more like evangelical atheists, because that's pretty much what they're doing. They're trying to evangelize the idea that God does not exist, and are convinced that a world without the belief of God is better than a world that believes in one. And unfortunately for us, these evangelical atheists have done a pretty good job of it. Church is on the decline, morality is decreasing, and people continue to lack meaning in their lives writ large. So, Richard Dawkins has largely succeeded in his endeavors, albeit with dire consequences. Many atheists cheer him on as an ambassador of rational thought, logic, and reason, which is why many people were surprised to hear Richard Dawkins make some pretty interesting comments in his interview with LBC. Let's take a listen.
I was slightly horrified to hear that Ramadan is being promoted instead. I do think that we are culturally a Christian country. I call myself a cultural Christian. I'm not a believer, but there's a distinction between being a believing Christian and being a cultural Christian. And so, I love hymns and Christmas carols, and I sort of feel at home in the Christian ethos. I feel that we are a Christian country in that sense. It's true that statistically the number of people who actually believe in Christianity is going down, and I'm happy with that. But I would not be happy if, for example, we lost all our cathedrals and our beautiful parish churches. So I count myself a cultural Christian. I think it would matter if we substituted any alternative religion. That would be truly dreadful.
So Dawkins says that the number of people who believe in Christianity is going down, and he's okay with that. In fact, he's happy with it. As long as we get to keep all the pretty and nice stuff that goes along with Christianity too, though. Like all the big pretty buildings and cute little Christmas carols and stuff. We can't get rid of those, no way. Now, Dawkins' response here demonstrates the same problem that many atheists have when critiquing Christianity, which is that they actually don't understand Christianity at all. You see, Christianity is a lot more than just pretty buildings and Christmas carols. In fact, the reason that many of those cathedrals that Dawkins talked about are so beautiful, and the music found in Christmas carols, hymns, and the great works of Bach are so stunning, is because they all point to a greater truth found in Christianity, which is that God himself epitomizes the nature of goodness, truth, and beauty. So of course, the art that Christians create, whether expressed in architecture, music, or paintings, are naturally going to communicate a higher level of aesthetic because they speak toward objective truth, goodness, and beauty. So naturally, when you take out the idea of God out of those buildings and the music we treasure so much in our Western culture, the only thing left is a delusion. And it's not the delusion that God exists, as Dawkins would claim. On the contrary, when you take God out of Christian art, the only thing that's going to be left is the delusion that he does not exist. And when that happens, Christian culture ceases to exist as well. In fact, at that point, there's hardly any culture left at all. And this is exactly what we see today. Now, it takes time to see the complete degradation of a culture take place. It doesn't happen right away. Western culture has been predicated on Christianity for nearly 2,000 years. And it's only been recently in the last couple of hundred years or so that we've slowly rejected the idea of God and objective truth in favor of subjectivity. And what we have seen is the gradual decline of quality in art, music, architecture, and therefore our culture as a whole. You know, there's a saying that I heard recently that really stuck to me, which is this: you can't cut a tree from its root and continue to enjoy its fruit. Eventually, the tree will stop producing the fruit you once enjoyed because it no longer has the life support to keep producing it, because it's been cut at the root. This is a great analogy for what we see today in our culture. Dawkins doesn't realize that he and many other Western atheists have been benefiting from the very ideas and systems that were set in place by Christians, theologians, philosophers, even scientists, and Christ himself. Atheists like Dawkins don't understand that you cannot enjoy a Christian culture for very long if Christ isn't in the picture. Any attempt to develop or maintain a Christian culture without Christ would be like trying to enjoy the apples from an apple tree that you cut down from the roots a few weeks ago. Sure, you can continue enjoying the apples for a little while, but that tree's dying. It's not going to produce fruit for much longer. And although there are still some Christian elements still present in our society today, most of us can sense that the spirit of our Christian culture is dying away, little by little, but more and more every day. So despite all the knowledge that Dawkins has, all the books he's read, and all the trails of rationality that he supposedly relies on, even he is too foolish to understand a very simple truth, which is this: there is no such thing as a cultural Christian. There is only a Christian. You cannot have one foot in and one foot out. You either believe in Christ and reap the benefits of his goodness, truth, and beauty, or you reject Christ and all of his benefits. By rejecting Christ, you reject the great things that Christ has to offer, such as salvation and redemption. But you also reject the great little things too, like the pretty buildings and Christmas carols. So, there's no such thing as a cultural Christian, but there is such a thing as a true Christian. Hopefully, we can all strive toward the latter together. And let's also pray that Richard Dawkins decides to join us.